everybody doing tonight? So take a minute to thank everybody for coming out Wednesday, especially right after work. Seeing this many people here, I'm very impressed with how many people Andy's touched, and it's a real testament that you all came out to see him tonight. I also want to thank Tony at the bar and everybody at the Tacoma Comedy Club for giving us a space. And just a few things, y'all know the drinks are back there if you need one. Food, name on the number on the table. Bathrooms are right over there. Feel free to come and go as you please. Welcome to Andy Vargo's show. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, living without shades, Andy Vargo.
Have you ever played hide and seek with a toddler? You know, a little kid, a wee one. Well, in case it's been a while, it usually goes something like this. You better hide. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you. And right away, that toddler does their best and fastest disappearing trick. Right? And all of a sudden, their world changes. It's dark. They feel secure. They're not afraid of you anymore. That toddler is all alone. I'm actually acting this out so well right now, my eyes are closed. You can't even see that through here. But I want to be authentic. But we know a little bit more than that toddler, right? That's why I wear these shades, because I'm afraid of all of you. But we're supposed to know more. We know that when that toddler covers his eyes, he's only darkening his own world. He's only obscuring his own vision of the rest of the world. That toddler's more dangerous than ever before, or in more danger than ever before, because they can't see you coming, but you can still see them. You're right in front of them. And that's something that I failed to understand for the first 40 years of my life. I felt like as long as I kept these shades on, I was safe and I was secure, and the world couldn't see me for anything that I didn't want them to see about me. But that all changed one day. And it didn't even really take a full day or an afternoon or an hour. It didn't take a lot of time for my shades to come off. All it took were 4 little words, and they were gone. And I can't tell you how much that changed my life. Now, when you take your shades off, you don't realize that all of a sudden the sky is going to be a brighter shade of blue than you ever thought possible. Or if you're in Washington, maybe it's a more silver version of gray. And the trees have more leaves on them than you ever thought, with deeper shades of green. And that road that's in front of you, that road that you might be standing on, that road goes so much further and in so many different directions than you ever dreamed possible. So when I took off my shades, I can't even tell you the feelings that came across me. It was this instant feeling of, the feelings were just so horrible. Like, you think that it's going to be really good, but when you take your shades off, what happens? You take those shades off, and the first thing you see is a glare. You just see an awful sun shining down in your face, and you can't even see what you want to see because it's fighting back at you so much. And it took a long time to get through that glare. It's not easy. I thought that I was actually, I thought that I was doing something wrong because I was adjusting to the glare. Even on a gray day around here, there's still a glare. And when I took my shades off, I thought that I must have missed some sort of the message, because this was supposed to be a good thing. I was supposed to be myself, I was supposed to be authentic, and what I didn't expect was to have hard times. And so in those months where I adjusted with the glare, never did it dawn on me that I was just in a period of adjustment. Never did I think that I was just doing bad math, because all I could think about was that 4 words ruined my life. Those 4 words that I used to take my shades off are what tore everything apart that was important to me. To me, those 4 words, I have feelings for men. I have feelings for men. Well, that's 5 words. But math comes later in my story. At this point in my life, I didn't realize that I was just doing bad math. To me, my math added up something like 1 wife, 3 kids, a really big closet, 1 pair of shades, plus 4 words equals ruined lives. All I could think about was that I had ruined everyone's lives around me. And until I started getting ready to start sharing my story more, I hadn't thought about defining what I went through in that time when I was in a glare before I stepped into a brighter world where I could see the road ahead of me. And I was still dealing with the fact that I could no longer control the world. I could no longer control people's perception of me. I could no longer control the way that they viewed me. And I never really understood that I never really had control. I was only fooling myself by keeping my world darker. So when I decided to get ready for this talk, I thought I'd go back to the roots of the struggle and look up what it means. So I got a really big dictionary with lots of words in it. And I looked up the word struggle. And it's interesting because when you look up the definition of a word, it can kind of change your perspective of how to think of the word. But in this case, struggle. I mean, and what do you think about when you think about someone struggling? You think about that superhero at the end of an action film. He's been shot 4 times and he's just struggling to get to the other side of the road to stop the bomb from blowing up the whole city. Or you think about a single mom who's struggling every week to pay the bills and do the best that she can for her children. Or maybe you think about yourself, whatever struggles you're going through. Maybe you're in the grocery store struggling on a Sunday afternoon to get from one side of Costco to the other. So when I look up the definition of struggle, it says to make strenuous or violent efforts in the face of difficulty or opposition. That sounds about right. Difficulty, opposition. But then I re-looked at it and I focused on a couple different words. To make strenuous or violent efforts. And it made me think a little bit differently about struggling. If you're struggling and you're making violent efforts to get to the next stage in your life, it doesn't make you feel like a victim so much. And there's another definition. To proceed with difficulty or great effort. Again, you hear difficulty and great effort. But the key word there is proceed. So when you struggle, you proceed. And if you put those together, you're going to proceed with violent effort. And you think about that guy at the end of the action film, and he's proceeding with violent effort to get across the street to stop the bomb from blowing up the city. He's proceeding with violent effort. Every ounce of passion in his body is getting him to the next stage of his life because he's struggling in a good way. He's not a victim. That single mom who's trying to put dinner on the table every single day is doing everything she can to proceed with violent effort to make her kids' lives better. And a struggle doesn't have to be such a bad thing. You see, a struggle is actually what makes us who we are, and it's what makes our story. If you actually bought a book and there was no struggle, you'd be disappointed. See, it's not the happily ever after that makes the story. When you get to that happily ever after in your life, what do? You close the book, you see the words "the end," and you forgot that Cinderella hooked up with Prince Charming. So it doesn't matter what your happily ever after is, and that you're not there yet. But also, it doesn't matter where your once upon a time was. Your once upon a time doesn't make your story. Once upon a time, you had 2 ugly stepsisters that wouldn't let you go to the ball. Boo-hoo. That's in the past. Once you get past that once upon a time, you turn the page, and you're in the middle of the struggle. If any of us bought a book and opened it up and it said, "Once upon a time, they lived happily ever after, the end," we'd be so disappointed. We'd take the book back, we'd want our money back, probably burn it. Definitely have to ban it from schools. And I know we would all be writing a bad review on Amazon. It's the fastest read ever, but not worth it. Because what makes the story, what makes us important, what makes people care, is the struggle. And my entire life, I wanted to be able to share stories with people, whether writing or speaking, that would move people and get them to do things to the next level that I couldn't accomplish myself. And I always felt like my story wasn't good enough. I felt like I hadn't achieved my happily ever after yet. I was still struggling to get by. And I didn't understand struggling yet to understand that I was proceeding with violent effort. I didn't understand that everything that I was doing was to get me to the next level in my story. And sometimes I got caught up on my once upon a time. Once upon a time, I was a poor kid from the South End. Once upon a time, I had kids earlier than I meant to in life. Once upon a time, I pretended to be somebody I wasn't for 40 years. But what I couldn't see was that the story I was living, that was the struggle and that was the story that people needed to hear. Because that's what people could relate to maybe help them make decisions in their own life. So it doesn't matter what your story is. Your story could be that you're that guy who's trying to save the city and you've been shot 4 times and you're proceeding with violent effort to get to the other side to stop the bomb from blowing up the city. It could be that you're a single parent. It could be that you are trying to get diagnosed with something and find out what's wrong with you and you deal with pain every day and doctors just don't know what it is. It doesn't matter what your story is, but your story does matter. It doesn't even matter if your struggle is that you ran out of Cocoa Puffs this morning. I know, that's a real thing. People are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I didn't realize how cuckoo they were, but I used to work in a grocery store, and we had a guy come in one morning, and he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I'm just starting my shift at 7 o'clock, and as I'm showing up, the night crew is cleaning up the boxes from the products that they put on the shelves all night long. And this gentleman shows up irate because not only is he out of Cocoa Puffs, but his story is now our problem because we're also out of Cocoa Puffs. And I really was not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So while the night crew goes to the back to look to see if they can find any box of Cocoa Puffs anywhere, and I'm filling out the tills and putting money in the tills for the checkers that are going to come in and start their day, I stand at the service desk and I do what every good customer service person would do. Well, this man stands a couple feet away from me, and I judge him. I mean, with all the problems in the world, violence, hunger, famine, diseases, and your problem is that you're out of chocolate cereal? Really? But I didn't know his story. And he started to share his story with me a little bit. And this man shares with me that these Cocoa Puffs aren't for him. These Cocoa Puffs are for his son who's having his first day of school that morning. And so it changed my perspective a little bit. I stopped judging the dad. Now I focus on the spoiled brat kid. Can't start his day without Cocoa Puffs. But he goes on with the story. Not only are these Cocoa Puffs for his son on his first day of school, but this is the first day of school after that child lost his mother this summer in a surprising accident. Not only are these Cocoa Puffs for this boy who's starting school today after losing his mother, but that was their tradition. Every beginning of the school year was to have a box of Cocoa Puffs as they started the school year. And he went on to share that his little boy was autistic, so those traditions and those routines mean a lot to that boy, more than normal. And Dad, poor Dad, in his proceeding with violent effort, in his struggle all summer long to keep the family together, to keep the kids' emotions in check, to get new shoes for all 3 of his kids, he forgot one thing. He had gotten the box of Crayolas with the sharpener on the back, 64 crayons in there. He'd gotten a box of Kleenex for each classroom, but he forgot a box of Cocoa Puffs until he woke up this morning. And that's when I met the guy who's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. When he walked in the store, I could care less if we found his Cocoa Puffs because I didn't know his story. I didn't know his struggle. I didn't know his son's struggle. I decided whether or not it mattered but your story does matter because it's what you're dealing with right now. And unfortunately, when he walked in, I thought, well, he can find something else because Cocoa Puffs really aren't that important. But by the time he left, I was a little sad because we didn't have boxed Cocoa Puffs to give him, and he had to leave without it. So it doesn't matter what your story is, but your story does matter. And so as I got into my glare and started dealing with the fact that I had taken these shades off, I started getting caught up in my own self-pity. And you start thinking about, what are you going to go through? How bad is life going to be? And for me, it was a very bright glare, but that brought me to a dark place. And every single day for months, that glare was there when I went to bed, and it was there when I woke up. And I still remember the day that I hit rock bottom. I still remember the day when I was at the lowest point that I could be. And more than that, I remember the night before. Because the night before is easy for me to remember because it wasn't just one night. It was one night, month after month after month, where I asked myself the same question. I asked myself, as I'm falling asleep, or trying to fall asleep, I would ask myself, what's going to happen tomorrow? How much worse is it going to get? What's going to happen next? And every day it was the same question with a different form. But the morning I hit rock bottom, I woke up to a sun that was much higher in the sky than it should have been for the time I meant to wake up that day. And I thought, is this finally rock bottom? I just want to pull the covers back over. And then I had one of those questions for myself. I had one of my typical hey idiot conversations. Because the guy inside my head is actually an idiot. And my question was, hey idiot, if you're not happy with your life, what did you do today to make it better tomorrow? And I couldn't answer that because the answer that I had was nothing. And I wasn't happy with that. And I remember getting out my journal, and I hadn't been writing in it because I just wasn't motivated to write at all. And I wrote that at the top of the page. So if you're not happy with your life, what are you going to do? And this for me was a tease or a taunt. It was like right in my face. It's like, idiot, fix this yourself. You're better than this. And then I thought, well, I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to start. And I thought, well, there's got to be just 3 simple things I can think of that I could do today to make my life better. And so I wrote down in my journal, what 3 things can I do so that tomorrow's a little better? I don't know, brush my teeth, take a shower, go outside. Very simple things. But that's how it started. Because the next day, I could write 3 new things. And at the end of the day, I would say, what did you do today? And I'd write down to hold myself accountable. So what did you do today to make your life better? I brushed my teeth, took a shower, went outside. And pretty soon they got to be better things that I would do. Called an old friend, spent time with my kids, had a productive day at work, went for a jog. And day after day, the things that I was putting in my notes were adding more and more excitement to my life. And they were happening more naturally. And pretty soon, I could look back behind me and I could see that rock bottom was a little ways away. But I still kept writing in my book because I knew that if I stopped doing something to make tomorrow better, then I don't know what would happen. I was afraid to stop. And pretty soon, I was so far from rock bottom that with my fear of heights, I didn't even want to look back because I didn't want to fall. And things changed in my life. I was having better conversations with the loved ones in my life, family and friends. I was spending more time with people I cared about. I was having more productive days. I was writing more and better thoughts than I'd ever written. And I hadn't changed much in my life, really. I didn't have a new job. I wasn't making more money. I wasn't spending more money. I didn't change the people that were in my life. I changed one thing, and that was the actions that I was taking. One little thing at a time. Maybe it was that I brushed my teeth, maybe it was that I took a shower, maybe it's that I picked up the phone. But those little things made a big difference. And so when you're dealing with the glare, that's what you have to do. I had forgotten a lesson that I had learned years before, which is the most important life lesson I've ever learned. I learned this lesson on an Alaska Airlines flight from Seattle to LA. And right before the plane was about to take off, a stewardess, 2 or 3 rows up, says to me, "Hey, idiot." I'm pretty sure that's what she said. "Hey, idiot, if the plane goes down, you put your own mask on first." She's calling it right out to me. Put your own mask on first. And it feels selfish to take care of ourselves first because we want to help people. We naturally want to do what we can for others. But it's very selfish to think that way, because actually what you're doing is you're telling yourself that you're not important enough to help more than what you think you can help. So when I wasn't putting my own mask on, I might be able to help somebody next to me, or say, "Oh, hey, you're about to trip on that." That's about all I could do. But when you put your own mask on first and you can breathe and you can function, then you actually have the ability to take care of everybody that you can reach. And you might not save them all, but you can help. She said one other thing right before that. Said the emergency exits are here, 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 and here. But I didn't want to get off this flight, because that's the easy way out. And I had people that I cared for more than I did about myself. Because see, that is an option. We can jump out the exit window, right? We don't want to do that. So by putting my own mask on first, I actually learned, and I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but I learned that I could help more people and life just became better. And what's important when you want to help yourself, it doesn't matter what you can do, it's that you do what you can do. It's so easy to get caught up with what we can't do, and we think about the things that we're going to do, and we say, I want to lose 20 pounds, but I can't even give up cheeseburgers. I want to run a marathon, but I can't jog 5 miles. And right away we start telling ourselves, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't. But we forget what we can do. Maybe I can't run even 5 miles or 5 kilometers to do a 5K. But can I walk to the end of my block? And so the challenge is to do whatever you can do, plus a little bit more. Whatever you can do might not quite be enough to grow to where you want to get to, because your mind tells you that that's all you can do. So if you can walk to the end of your block and that's all you can do, you walk to the end of your block. And then you cross the street. Or you take one more step before you turn around to go home. Because that little bit more that you do, that's where the growth comes in. When you do what you can do, plus a little bit more, before you know it, that block that you walked becomes 2. And you're looking back on your home 2 or 3 blocks from you. Or you're a mile away. Which means you're a mile closer to running that marathon or jogging that 5K. Maybe you can't give up cheeseburgers, but maybe you can order the junior size. I'm not a good example of that, but I'm just saying. But there is something you can do, so do what you can do, plus a little bit more. When I started doing what I could do, plus a little bit more, I found that life was getting so busy. I was having lunch with friends. I'd have days where I'd have coffee in the morning with one friend, I'd have lunch with another, and then I would get a full day's work done, I'd start writing. Life was getting busy and hectic and crazy, and then one day I stopped. And I just stopped. Because it was a bad day. And as soon as I stopped, all of the weight and guilt of stopping piled on top of me. Because all I could hear was people saying, "Don't stop. You have momentum. Keep going. Don't ever stop." So when I did stop, I felt like I had just thrown away everything that I had done And not only was I back at rock bottom, but I was even a few steps further away. But all those people that say don't stop, they're not finishing the sentence. It's okay to stop, because sometimes you just need a break. Stopping didn't hurt me. What hurt me was when I didn't go again. So the sentence isn't never stop. It's never stop going again. It's okay that you stop. It's okay that you have a break. We need to redefine the word stop so that when we get to that stop, we think of it more like a pause or maybe a smoke break. No, that's not healthy. An intermission. When you get to a stop, you just take an intermission. You go out to the lobby and you get a cookie, order a drink, maybe use the restroom, take a nap, whatever. But then you come back in and you enjoy the rest of the show, because the show is going to go on whether you're in that theater or not. So it's okay to stop. Just never stop going again. One of my sons, when he was little, he would dig like you wouldn't believe. He would dig for fun. Like, I always thought you had to be trying to get somewhere, but he just liked to dig holes. It didn't matter if we were on a beach and he was digging in sand, or we were in the mountains and he was digging in snow. He would dig and dig and dig. But sometimes he would stop. And the interesting thing about digging a hole is that while you're digging your hole deeper and deeper, next to it, there's a pile that gets taller and taller. And when he would stop because a friend would come over or dinner was ready, he might not come back to that hole for a day, an hour, a month. He's got other things to do. But when he did come back to that hole, it didn't fill itself in. The pile that was next to it didn't get smaller. That next shovel that he put on top of the pile added to all the work that he had done already. So if you were eating healthy for a month, and then it's like, oh, I had cheeseburger yesterday, might as well have pizza today. It doesn't give up on the fact that you put healthy food in your body for a month. It doesn't take away the fact that you may have added an hour or a day or a week to your life from the habits that you did for that month. And if you build onto that, you're going to add another day or another week. That doesn't get taken away. The work that you do doesn't go away. We just have to never stop going. It's interesting when you think about everyday life, and if we applied the same things to the way that we treat ourselves in what we expect from ourselves, it would be kind of funny to see. Like, I picture, how would life be if that was how we drove? Like, hey, Grandma, I was coming over for Thanksgiving. I got to a stop sign. I guess I'm not making it. You know, if you get to a stoplight and you stop and you don't go again, something's going to happen, isn't it? First of all, someone's going to be behind you going, move. People want to help you out, right? But then they're going to do what we all should do, and they're going to put their own mask on first and go around you, because they're going to the party without you. They're not going to let you hold them back from experiencing their lives. They want to try and help, but they're going to keep going, and they're going to get to that party. And there you sit because you didn't go again. The other interesting thing about applying that concept to driving is that if you drove 5 miles down the road to get to that party, and then you stopped, if you never went any further, you're still 5 miles closer to that party than when you left. You're still 5 miles from where you started, because that's how far you got. And as soon as you decide to put that mask on and take the shades off and be honest with yourself and take another mile down the road, you're going to pick up at the 5 mile mark and keep going. Someone who understood this concept really well was Gentleman Joe Blow, who you might remember being cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Gentleman Joe, I watched him leave our store empty-handed, and he walked across the parking lot to the drugstore that was in the corner of the lot. And I saw him go in, and I knew what he was looking for because I heard his story. And because I cared, I was kind of looking out the window, Kind of like you're watching like a sports team that you're like, didn't get tickets to. And he went in, determined as could be to find a box of Cocoa Puffs for his kid. And then I was sad because I saw him come out empty-handed. And it wasn't until a week later that I heard that it took him a couple more stores, but he did find a box of Cocoa Puffs that morning before he went home. Because he knew that he needed to struggle through his morning, that he needed to proceed with violent effort until he found that box of Cocoa Puffs, because that could make that kid's day, school year, and life. And he knew that each of those things that stopped him on the way were not a complete stop. Each of those things that got in his way were a chance for him to never stop going again. And he got that. So if I can inspire any wisdom on anybody, one point in my life, I wanted to speak to people and do great things. I wanted to change people's lives. I wanted to save the world or do anything I could to make it a better place. And it wasn't until this last year where I actually took my own shades off, where I actually had to start going through the process of dealing with the glare, that I started to learn that that's not in me to do. That's not my power. I can't change anyone's life here. I can't change anyone's life that reads the things that I write on my blog. That's not up to me. All I can do is tell my story, share the things that I've been through, and hope that that person puts their own mask on first, and that they're true to themselves. And the way that I've learned how to do that is to take the shades off, struggle through the glare, struggle through the glare by proceeding with violent effort to do everything that you can to get to the next stage in your life. And when you do that, you do it by doing whatever you can, plus just a little bit more. Whatever you can, plus a little bit more, and you know that you're going to stop someday, because we all need a break. And when we do stop, we're going to keep going again. And that's been my story. That's kind of what I've been through and what I've learned, and I continue to learn every single day. As soon as you think you have it figured out, I think that's actually when you stop learning, and that's probably when you start going downhill. So I think the more that we continue to learn, the better we all are. But I was surprised to learn that the dream that I was chasing my whole life wasn't really mine to chase. It's just a story for me to tell. So, I can't let you guys go without trying to sell you something. You've all been invited here tonight. The thing that I want to sell you on is helping me chase my dream in two ways. One, help yourself. And whatever it is that you need to take your shades off about. For me, taking my shades off was about coming out as a gay man and being true to myself about that. It doesn't have to be about that. It could be that you have a dream that you want to pursue that you've never told anybody. You want to be a ballet dancer and you work with all construction guys. Yes, I'm stereotyping. It could just be that you like black licorice in a world where black licorice is taboo. And yes, I'm a black licorice lover. But whatever it is, be honest with yourself so that the people around you can start to learn your story, because that's where you're going to start to get support. And people are going to rally behind you, even if it is that you like black licorice. Even if your struggle is that you're out of Cocoa Puffs. Be true to yourself. The second thing I want to sell you on is my dream. And that is my dream to continue to do talks like this, to motivate people, to move people, and to start my career as a speaker. Now, I told everybody this was a practice speech, but it would have been more fitting to say that this is the beginning of the next step in my dream. And I really thank you all for being here tonight, because it means a lot. This is the next step for me, and if you have enjoyed our talk tonight and you find any value in it, you could help me by just spreading the word. There's a thank you note on all your tables with my information. I also have cards to pass out. But just to spread the word, if you know anybody who's looking for a speaker, I eventually would love to, make a living doing this, but even in the short term, just practicing speaking to groups to kind of develop my story and to help move people, because that's really what it's all about. So I just want to end with that. Definitely thank everybody for being here tonight. You guys are my closest friends, the most important people in my life. I really appreciate everybody coming from so far away on a weeknight to be here. And then definitely thank Tony in the back, who's been running around like crazy to take care of all of us. He's a great guy. Be sure to tip the servers well. Steve will finish up with a couple closing remarks, but thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
This is kind of weird because normally we're doing an open mic and this is where I make fun of him for whatever he said on stage. I gotta tell you, that was great. One more for Andy. That was. I gotta say, I'm probably his newest friend here. I've only known this Andy, and I'm sure friends have been for a long time. I don't remember if I was volunteering here or he was. But I remember we were both standing back there at that light, and I go, shit, I'm kind of nervous. I go, I don't know if this joke's gonna land because it's about my wife and she's in the audience. And he doesn't even look at me, he just says, I got 5 coworkers here who don't know I'm gay and I'm about to come out on stage. He wins. Anyway, we are going to have an open mic here later tonight. Andy's going to be around. Be sure to tell me what you thought. Give us feedback, give him hugs, give him everything. He is definitely one of the greatest guys I know. And I'll just say it first because I got to get out of here, but absolutely inspiring. Thank you.